I just want to make sure we use up all our space effectively. I think this is going to be a full room. So if you have make it clear if there's a space that somebody else could sit in, like don't leave your stuff hanging out on the chair unless it means something.
I'm going to take notes on this one, and then just let me know if you need anything.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
We still have a couple minutes.
Yeah. I think we'll be starting in 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. This is a hard place to work. 'Cause it's slippery.
Yeah.
Everything falls down, and this is a death trap. The whole thing is dangerous.
Yeah.
Don't be shy. Did not work? Don't be shy. We got all kind of nice, juicy spaces right here in the front. There's some other 3 chairs over here. There's a chair right there. There's good spots way up in the front. I won't bite you. Here's a good one right here. Come on up. She's not scared. I've seen you before in the front. Yeah, you can have your pick. There we go. Plenty of room up front. Don't be shy. Bunch of chairs here, here. Here's one with the desk for serious people. Right here. Hey, serious woman. Let's see, what else do we got? Is that taken? Next to you? All right, here's a super serious chair right here. Who's ready to take some notes? Come on. Don't be shy. All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to till or not to till session. And I'm Sheil Mofikoya. I'll be the moderator for this session. And during the course of the session, I'll be distributing this feedback notes. Please just write your feedbacks at the end of the session and leave it on your table. I'll pick it up after. So Ellen will be taking us through this session. And during the course of the session, if you also have a question, just raise your hand. And it's either I come to you or Ellen can repeat the question. And without further ado, let's welcome Ellen Polishuk. Thank you.
All right. We still got spots in the front in case anybody needs a chair with a desk. We got one there. Another one? Okay. This is the big sleepy time slot, right? Oh, man. Maybe they put somebody like me in this spot for a reason, because I'm going to do everything I can to wake your ass up. Woo! Sorry, almost hurt. All right, see? If you just walk up here, I'm going to step on you. We got a chair, beautiful chair right here. We got 6 chairs right in the front, and I won't kick you. All right, my name is Ellen Polishuk. I declined my formal introduction, so I'm just going to let her rip. And I got my favorite clicker. I brought myself from home with a red dot. For those of you that were with me yesterday suffering through whatever that other thing was. Okay, so this is what we're talking about today. To till or not to till? That is the question. Before we talk about me, I want just a quick show of hands of who's in the room. So how many of you are farmers? Cool. How many of you would call yourself no-till farming? What are you doing here? Okay. And then how many of you would call yourselves regular or a tiller? Someone who uses tillage. Don't be shy. All right. Interesting. I don't know who the rest of you all are, but welcome. Hopefully buckle up. Should be fun. Okay. This is who I am. This is where I came from. I'm a regular suburban kid who went awry and fell into agriculture as a teenager and barely survived. All my work, farming work, is in the Washington, D.C. area, selling into the Washington, D.C. area, farming in Virginia. Not wickedly dissimilar from this kind of geology, this kind of climate. So zone 7, shit soil, just like you. I was lucky enough to be adopted by an existing operation, so I didn't have to leverage my whole life to start a farm. I farmed with others that I was not related to. It's a really cool way to go. I recommend it. Different talk. We grew a lot of stuff, about $1 million worth. That's in 10 years ago numbers. And we used eco-organic methods. What does that word mean? It's not defined, so you can do whatever you want with it. For me, it meant not certified organic. We sold all retail, so we didn't need the green circle. Nothing against it, loved the green circle, just didn't need it. My farming consisted of 180 beautiful, very slightly rolling acres, of which 50 were inside of a deer fence, of which 20 were tilled, of which 10 made my living. Complicated answer to how much do you farm, right? It's a long answer. And the key for this is the rotation is 1 year on, 1 year on vacation. Okay, whole other talk. I'd love to be invited back to talk about rotation, which is not in favor lately. I don't know why. Okay, this is what I do now. In 2017, I stopped farming because of lots of different reasons. Men, husbands, not husbands, getting old and broken, and sort of like the last chance if I wanted to have another career, better get going if you're 55, right? So now my career is talking about farming and coaching and helping breathe oxygen onto the movement to create more beautiful farmers for our country. So that's what I do. And this is who I am in the room with you now. This is my intention. I want to release a little bit of dogma around tillage, a little bit of righteousness, and let's remember we're all on the same team, the team of growing food for our friends and neighbors. I want to give you plenty of information so that you make informed decisions about each farming act that you're going to do, okay? So we're not going to have any right and wrong. We're just going to have, well, there's this, and here's the consequences. Then there's this, and here's these consequences, and here's this, and here's these consequences, and you're going to pick and choose what works. I'm going to have some advice, broad advice that is worth whatever your ticket is that you paid to get here, right? Take it or leave it. No problem. And so I want you to come out of here feeling some more freedom, a little bit less tension in your shoulders around tillage decisions on your farm. Cool? All right, I hope that's going to work for you. As you can tell, I'm pretty informal. I move around a lot, and I love to be interrupted. So I'm not going to say, wait to the end. There is no end. It's not like we're building this hour and a half long program until the last minute, and then I'm going to tell you the thing that you've been waiting for. I'm going to tell you the thing at the beginning, and then we're going to get in the weeds, and if we don't even get to the last slide, who cares? We had a really good interchange, okay? If you just want to fight with me, we'll probably have to just do that later. And I love a good argument. But if you have something that's like just dogging you, not making sense, let's hear it. Because if you don't talk about it right when it's happening, I'm going to have lost you. You're going to be stuck with your question, you're going to be all nervous and weird, and then you're going to stop being able to take in any more information. So that's the main reason, plus no sleeping, right? So all of this is to lead to no sleeping. This is my water bottle shepherd here. Okay, is that going to work? Really, it's going to be all right. Okay, trust me. So from whence I come, from a fundamental, how do I view agriculture and soil, like who are my mentors? I come from Gary Zimmer of Midwestern Bioag in Wisconsin. He's one of my, probably the most important soils mentor I have as a farmer and now as a workshop leader, person who stands in front of the room. And now, who's here from NRCS? Okay, so this is looking pretty darn familiar. Only thing missing is I don't talk about cows, because I don't know anything about them, and so I don't talk about them. And most of us in vegetables also don't know how to talk about cows either. So we can throw livestock in later, but these are basically the core fundamentals of healthy soils, agreed upon by a lot of people, okay? So I'm gonna refer back to this, but you just need to know, like, this is my credo. This is my belief system. And we're not gonna get into it super, I'm not gonna go one by one with these right now. I just want you to know from whence I come, okay? You're good? All right, I thought we had a wave. Everybody good? All right, we got a whole table of NRCS right there. Uh-oh. We love you guys. It's been going good. We used to, I'm old enough when we didn't know really who you were, but now we're friends. Okay, let's get our language straight. So this is the beginning of becoming more educated and more clear in our speaking about tillage. So let's know together that the people who created no-till, this was a long time ago. It was in the 70s, and it was at Virginia Tech, my alma mater, where they were trying to solve the problem of erosion. And they were like, can we ever figure out how to grow some crops without busting up the soil? So they created no-till agriculture. And when they say no-till, they are seriously meaning never tilling. That's the system. None, ever. So it's 100% dependent on herbicides. That's the basis of American agriculture right now. 37% of all the cropland in the United States is farmed using no-till methods. So this is regular commodity agriculture, okay? This is when you go around the country or the countryside in the spring and you see vast swaths of bright yellow fields. The yellow is not mustard flowering, it's Roundup cover crops. And that's how the cycle begins. You start with planting your cover crop in the fall. You let it grow. You blast it with, blast is a real word. You spray Roundup or something like it to kill everything in the spring. Then you no-till seed with something that looks like this through all of that residue. Really cool. That's the whole point. That's the special planter, dude. It's going through a big mess. and it's cutting a slot and putting that seed in the ground, seed and other things that I don't really know what they are, chemicals and fertilizers and stuff that are outside of my experience. And then this is what you end up with: corn growing amidst corn stubble. Yay, rotation. Whoops. Corn over corn. Okay. So then you harvest your corn and you start all over again. That's no-till agriculture. Across the world, if you say no-till agriculture, this is what you're talking about. Okay? So then the Rodale guys, the organic guys from way back, 70s, start to think, well, heck, can we figure out how to use that cool no-till planter and take out the herbicide piece? Can we figure it out? And there's Jeff Moyer. You can't see it. I took him off the side of the... He's driving this tractor, but this is him with his roller crimper, front-mounted, and this is the system that he helped design. So we plant that cover crop in the fall. In the spring, when the rye is nice and tall and likely in flower, that's a good time to knock it over. You knock it over with that roller crimper, and the, whoops, sorry, I'm just going, here we go. This is the crimping part. So it's really assuring that that rye is going to stay laying down and not just pop right back up. And then you take that cool planter and you come in there and you no-till plant your crop into this amazing bed of usually rye residue. So this is organic, no-till grain farming. Then Ron Morse at Virginia Tech built a machine that would allow you to transplant into roller crimped rye. Does anybody have one of those? They must have one at UK. You have one? Woo, that's weird. Right on. I knew you were special, but now I know even more. So Bryce has a no-till transplanter, so that allows us then to do no-till transplanting of vegetable crops into this beautiful rolled down rye. All kinds of problems with it. So it's a super cool idea. It is not widely adopted yet. People are figuring it out. We got problems, but it's interesting. There's possibilities there. All right? But there's tillage, okay? So after this, I'm going to hopefully not fall over. After this crop, whatever you're planting into the rye is harvested, you got to till the field to start over again. So this is removing a bunch of tillage, but not all of it. Are we solid? Okay. So this is history, not my favorite subject, but I'm working on it. Now, the reason why y'all are here is because you want to talk about no-till that means this, something like this. I just went on the internet and grabbed pictures that I thought were interesting. I have no idea who these people are. I'm not trying to embarrass anybody. It's just a picture that represents this modern idea about market garden, organic-ish, or totally organic version of no-till. Right, so the booth opposite this room is called No-Till Growers, No-Till Podcast. Is Jesse in the room? He went home for a nap. Me and him are solid, no problem. We are in total agreement, actually. So that's good. Okay, so what's going on in this picture? This is people creating a whole garden, basically on top of existing land. So they're starting with the cardboard layer, and then they're just putting a shit ton of compost on top of that, and voila, we have a no-till garden, market garden, okay? So some of the other kind of core tenets of no-till is the use of tarps. We're totally gonna talk about these things. lots of compost, tends to be less cover cropping, using tools that are actually doing some tillage. Oops. And we're doing a lot of handwork, okay? I see I have a cursor in the way. Okay, let's see if we can lay that down. There we go. All right. So what is tillage anyway? Here's the definition from the dictionary. Tillage is the manipulation of the soil into a desired condition by mechanical means. Well, that doesn't sound very fun, but I guess that makes sense. I would describe it as tillage is soil disturbance. So here's some pictures of soil disturbance, right? You know all these things. This isn't the whole story, it's just, some stuff. Here's the tilther. If you're going to say that that is not tilling, I don't know what you're talking about. We are no longer speaking English at the same time, okay? It's a tilther. It's a tilther. It's doing some tilling. Okay, that's cool. I'm not making fun of it. I'm just wanting us to get more nuanced in our language. And maybe, okay, so this is a way that people are planting tulips now. They're digging a giant ditch and putting tulips in it. Here's some people having fun with a broad fork. I have no idea where this is. Again, this is just the internet. Like, woo, that looks fun. We have the harvesting of root crops. I'm pretty sure when you dig carrots and potatoes, there tends to be some disturbance of the soil because that's where those plants are. Those edible parts are. Here's some tillage using a wheel hoe, and then here's regular old BCS action. Okay, so these are kind of on the gentle side of life. All right, so let's just say right off the top, pretty much nobody's doing no-till without tillage, okay? Pretty much. Now, there are some people that are really, really, really not tilling ever. Just a few. And I've been to one of those farms. Daniel Mays was here. I haven't been to his farm, Frith Farm. People say it's rock and roll. Never been there, don't know exactly what he's up to. I went to Singing Frogs Farm in California, one of the early adopters of no-till, and had really interesting conversations with them. So I've seen some stuff. But pretty much everybody's doing a little bit of tillage. All right, so what is the big stink about tillage? Why are we so freaked out about it? And rightly, there's lots of things to think about, lots of things to worry about. Why would Virginia Tech come up with a whole new kind of agriculture that takes away tillage? And that's because we were tilling too much at the wrong times in the wrong places on hilly land, and we were losing soil. Not a great proposition. So what we know about tillage, and some people will say that the end of various civilizations is linked to over-tilling, over-irrigating, right? Ruining land, famine ensues. So we know we have the accelerating the loss of soil carbon through the introduction of more oxygen into the soil. We know that happens. We know that tillage can and does destroy aggregation. How much it destroys depends on timing, soil condition, and your tool, how you're using your tool, how deep, how much RPMs, blah, 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 shape of the tiller tine, a lot of things coming into play. And we know that all of this leads to an erosion problem. Now, this piece in green came in more lately. This is the more modern upset and information about, we're not just breaking up aggregates and it's just all soil physics. We got a soil biology disruption now, okay? So we're busting up the fungal community. Isn't that interesting that we have now fungal advocation, right? It's just like, can you believe you can go to a regular restaurant, like, I don't know, what's a regular restaurant? Italian, Olive Garden or something, and get freaking Brussels sprouts? Do you remember Brussels sprouts were like disgusting and nobody ate them? And now we want to have them raw in salad? Like, things do change, okay? So here we are, like, wow, we are advocating fungus. It's a whole new world. Okay, cool, great information. All right, so those are the problems with tillage. I'm going to get into the how are we going to think about this as farmers? So here's Mama's advice. If you're starting with a beautiful, friable, healthy soil that is not compacted and has decent organic matter, which would be maybe over 3%, 2.5 to 3, then do whatever you want. I don't care. It's probably going to work. But if you live in a place not like that, if you're on tight, dead soil, your organic matter is low, you may be in the 5s, pH-wise, you've got almost no phosphorus. This is a situation, and I see this situation as totally common, totally normal, especially on hay ground. So lots of our organic types were like, yeah, let's get some hay ground because they haven't been spraying herbicide on it, maybe. It has less chemicals. This is going to be great. Except there's actually no nutrients because they've just been harvesting and selling them. And maybe they put lime down and that's it. So we have a low pH, low nutrient soil with kind of nothing going on. If you also add that to being in a place where you basically have no soil freezing, which helps release nutrients, does a little bit of tillage, frankly, and you also have rain, that's called the southeast of the United States, maybe you gotta have another plan first. Okay, so this is where I am, and this is straight up Gary Zimmer language. Does anybody follow Gary Zimmer or a fan of him at all? Wow, just you. One, Mr. Poppin and me, the old people here. Nobody else ever read The Biological Farmer? It's good stuff. You have to be able to deal with talking about cows and rumens, but you can do it. It's like, this is important foundational material for our movement. Okay, I say you got to earn the right to go no-till. And where you are starting from, your geography, and what kind of scale of farming you want to do, have everything to do with your cascading set of decisions on how you want to approach the soil. Does that make sense? Hopefully it's going to make a lot more sense in a minute. Does anybody, how are we doing? Anybody need to say anything? Ask anything? Freak out? We're good? I'm not upsetting you yet? Well, I better try harder. Okay. So here's what I'm seeing in the world. Most of us are not blessed with beautiful soil. So one of Gary Zimmer's problems is he's from Wisconsin. Do you know what kind of soil they have in Wisconsin? It's nice. It's black. It's got a lot of organic matter. It's got nutrients. And this is another phrase straight out of Gary Zimmer. He's like, you just put a seed in the ground and get out of the way, because that's gonna grow. Is that the kind of soils we have here? Where you just put the seed in the ground and get out of the way? Nope. All right, so this is what we're working with. The Southeast in particular, we're farming subsoil, right? Because the real soil washed away in the 1800s or before. We got some tough conditions, y'all. You know it, I know it. Let's just be honest. Okay. I see this. This is not a picture I've taken. I found it, but it's yeah. So this is somebody's no-till operation, market garden scale, and they've built a farm on top of shitty land. And you can see that the land is so shitty that it's actually gray. And this land, this smells, right? This smells like sulfur. This is so compacted and so waterlogged, it's like the death knell for plants. Okay, so depending on, there is one root here. Here's one. I don't know whose it is, but it's pretty brave. It might be a weed. So I see this a lot, and the question is, will this work for you? Can you build a farm on top of the land that you purchased or have access to? And obviously, some people are making it work, right? Jesse Frost, I don't know what he started with. Lots of no-tillers, so-called, in the movement of no-till, used to farm, used to till, and they fixed a bunch of problems like pH, phosphorus, and other nutrients, and then they went no-till. That's exactly what I'm saying is a good idea, maybe. But starting off on top of that, okay. Do you remember there was a guy, you can farm on a parking lot. If you put enough something out there, you can grow some plants on a parking lot. I don't know about nutrient density, but nobody else does either. We just like to talk about it. We don't actually know anything, but we like to talk about it. This worries me. And it depends on your crops. If you're mostly growing salad and radishes, this is probably going to work. If you're going to grow deeper rooted, longer term crops with significant root systems, I imagine this could be a limiting factor for you. I also have seen this. Now, this is a crap picture, but it's the best thing I could get to help talk about this. This is compost. What I'm trying to get you to see is water movement through pure compost or pure potting soil sometimes doesn't work. Do you know what I'm saying? With potting soil, you got to mix it up with the water in order for the peat moss to take on the liquid. It's hydrophobic. So is really dried out compost. And it actually repels water. So I had a client ask me to come out and look at their cut flower crop. They're like, our shit is no good. And we're doing everything right. We're no-till. We got all this beautiful compost. It's just straight compost. And I went out there and looked at it, and the plants couldn't get water. They were thirsty. What do you call it when you're thirsty? It's not starving, it's dehydrated. What did you say? They were parched. Yeah, and they were nutrient deprived. They were just not happy. So we got a situation like that can happen, where the water dynamics are not working. Okay, so if I were to be able to be your mama and give you some advice, I would say this. This is for starting off, brand new. I would open up that soil, I would test it, and I would know what you need to do for pH. I'd want to know how much phosphorus you have or don't have, and I want to start addressing that ASAP. And then I'd stir it up. That would be called tillage, more tillage. And then I'd be adding some other minerals, probably some micronutrients. We don't know what you're missing. Maybe you need magnesium, maybe you need who knows what. We're going to test and find out. And then I'm going to till it, and I'm going to plant cover crop. Could be a short one if you're super impatient, which you probably are. Let's just grow buckwheat. So you grow buckwheat across that whole new patch, and that's your first report card. How's that crop going to grow? And you will see variations in height and color are the map for how's that soil underneath. It tells you what you need to know next, okay? Then that's going to give you some feedback. Now you're going to run some more tests. I'd rather you did a longer cover crop, but whatever. And then we're going to consider that we could be using a subsoiler somewhere along the way to get us a little bit deeper. We're not going to flip it over. We're not going to take soil from 12 inches and put it on top. We're just going to run a ripper through it. I'll show you some pictures, create some channels, and then we're going to plant a deep-rooted crop that will then go and reinforce those channels with biology. So it keeps them open for later. Yeah. Yeah. So the question is about how does compost come into play? Could I just sum it up like that? Do I have a recipe? I got no recipes. And anybody who has one is likely misleading you. This is too complicated a beast. I'm just giving you some ideas here. You can mix up those numbers. You can do number 4, and then you can do number 2. Recipes don't work in agriculture most of the time. It's a living system, and we keep saying that. We keep saying it has to do with the sun and the wind and the slope and the rain and the biology and the geology and the geography, and then we want a recipe. You're a beautiful lady. I'm not kicking you in the teeth. I'm kicking us in the teeth. You know, we always want just give me the answer. Okay, I want you to think harder and come up with your own. Did somebody raise their hand? Yes. We're going to talk about compost. That's the real answer. Yep. 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 So this is good. Thank you. Got it. No, I mean, I'm saying, I hear what you're saying. I got what you're saying. So before you add very much compost, you need to know, and there's a slide coming up about it. What kind of compost is it, and what is it testing out as? This gentleman is saying he got compost that was testing at 9 pH. I've never seen one at 9. I've seen high 8s, but I've never seen a 9 pH compost, so-called compost. If you're going to use a 9 pH so-called compost, you don't need no lime. That's the lime. So before you add lime, we have got to think about all the ingredients you want to be using. So maybe lime is not part of your situation. Maybe you're at 6.5 anyway, and you don't need lime. These are just ideas. All right, I lost my clicker. Here we go. Thank you, sir. But we're going to get into the compost in just a couple slides. Where are we? Does anybody know what time I know what time it is, but what does it mean? Like when do I have to stop? We have 40 minutes. Right on. Okay, so let's talk about tillage and the things that it does for us, the good stuff, and let's see if we can come up with some more choices about replacing tillage or not replacing tillage. All right, let's just think about it that way. Compost is coming, I promise. All right, so here's what I would say are some of the key attributes or the goals of tillage. This is what it's doing for us. Number 1, aeration, oxygenation, right? The same thing that's its detriment is its attribute. Number 2, we're going to go through these one by one with more pictures. Organic matter or amendment incorporation, which it could be basically the same as number 5. Seedbed preparation for small seeded crops. So we're not growing soybeans and corn, we're growing carrots and lettuce and other small seeded crops. And then we got weed control, good old-fashioned weed control. So organic vegetable production historically was based on moving dirt around to kill weeds. We used all kinds of cool weeding equipment. All right, so let's talk about it. Number one, we're talking about aeration. So we're going to think about this aggregation issue. It's for real. This is the real deal, okay? So there is a spectrum of how much air do we want versus not enough. And here are the visuals. This is not enough. This is a big old clod. This is hard, not a lot of air, going to be tough for root to get through and do its job. On the far other end, we got too much air. This is what it looks like after the tilther or a rototiller, that you're going nice and slow. You're tilling the shit out of it, right? Ooh, that looks nice. Okay, this is blenderized. You busted everything up, pretty much. Am I making you wrong? No, I'm just talking about what's happening. You decide what you need to do. And then in the middle, this is like where we want to live, here. Okay, so the difference between here and here is this is like everybody's on their own. There's no families, there's no communities. It's just every dirt particle for itself. Super lonely, too much air, everything is no good here. And this is what's going to wash away, big time. This is families, communities of soil particles living together and creating these beautiful channels in between for air and water to flow and for roots to enter. This is the sweet spot, baby. Okay? That's what we're aiming for. So, yeah. You already know that part. I just want to give you my personal reality with compaction. Has anybody created compaction? Woo-wee! What'd you do? Tell me. Work the soil wet. Anybody else? Hogs. Ooh, interesting. There's our livestock. All right, here's what I did. So this field the year before had an irrigation leak right here. And I went to do something in that field. I knew it was wet, but I didn't know how bad it was. And my whole tractor was like, wow, sunk right in. Like, I didn't have to get pulled out, but it was bad. This is the year after that. So this is almost a year later. This is a tomato crop in that one space where my tractor tire had gotten bogged down. This is the same tomatoes later in the season. Like, there's just basically like nothing happening here. These plants are pissed. Okay? That's the reality of compaction in a very short, one false move in one little spot. And I'm going to pay the price here for, the rest of my life, possibly. Okay? Yikes. All right, so how are we going to deal with this issue of aeration with no tools? How are we going to fix compaction without any metal? Bring it. What do you got? Earthworms. Yep. Micro bubbler in the soil. Don't know anything about it, so we'll have to talk later because I can't sidetrack, but I'm curious what the hell you're talking about. Cool. What else we got? Daikon radishes. All right, one of our heroes. So, cool. This is complicated like this. Which comes first, the tillage radish or the metal? Like, there's a way in which if you did a little bit of metal and then you did the tillage radish, you get a lot further down the pike than I'm just going to spread a bunch of seeds over top of this parking lot and hope that everything works out. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's It's a dance. I think it's a dance. It's a little bit, it's a little bit, it's a little bit, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Yes, we gotta have biology. But biology can't live if it can't breathe. That's why he's putting bubbles in the water, apparently. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you can... So, it's both. I want us to talk about both. Let's be improv. Let's be both and no buts. Does that make sense? Some of you young people know about this. Improv, right? It's powerful. If you can adopt that principle of improv into your whole life, your shit's gonna change really cool. All right, so is this gonna work? I mean, when I look at that just scares me. This is super scary, but how many of you see this in real life? Lots of you. So what do you do? What are you doing? How's it going? Anybody have some experience to share? Yeah. There you go. So you're using tillage cautiously and with very clear purpose. High five, I'm on your team. What else has anybody got going? Yep. Good, so he's using a broad fork like this, maybe not as deep and maybe not lifting, but you're creating channels. You're putting maybe compost and some other, and seeds, and you're inviting biology. Hey, how about you go a little deeper, would ya? Okay, so invite them a little at a time. You don't need to go down a foot. Just go down 2 inches into whatever is the scary place. That's too many inches. Just go a little bit at a time. Creep your way in. All right, so here's a really terrible ripper. I'm just saying, it's just Google, So this is like the worst, cheapest one at Tractor Supply, and it's probably gonna break. Okay, so don't buy this one, but you could, and I really don't want you to buy one at all. I want you to borrow one, because that's cheap. And I know you're tight on money, so I want you to borrow one, or you have friends who are kind of a bunch of old dudes, and they're retired, they got a lot of equipment and not enough things to do. And you invite them over to rip the shit out of your farm, and they're like, yes, they'll almost pay you. Right? Because you're a nice hippie asking to have your field ripped. They're like, yeah, now we're getting somewhere. Okay? So, get thee a ripper, maybe, and just like you just said, put some crops in after it. Here's our tillage radish. So some of this begs the question of how much time and money do you have for this project, right? So if you somehow decided that this is where you were going to start your farm, I'm going to have to question your sanity. Or I'm going to have to say, wow, you must have a lot of money to spend on compost. Or you must be really young, and you got 10 years to get this soil ready to grow vegetables. Because you don't have the money to buy the compost, but you have time because you have a regular job, and you're just going to grow 10 years of cover crops, and you're going to gently invite this soil back into life. So time and money, which one do you have? If you don't have either one, that's going to not work too good. Then you need to move to Wisconsin. Okay? All right. We're still talking about aeration. Yeah. Oh, I'm going backwards. That's the problem. Sorry. You'd think I'd never done this before. All right. Here's some of the rules. Just like everybody who raised their hands who's compacted their soil, never work ground when it's wet. We're going to use the lightest equipment we can. We're going to not drive around the field for fun. We're going to try to combine our jobs in one pass. And we're going to start to think about using some different tools that are gentler than others. Okay? And always, 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 biology. We're always going to keep trying to have plants growing on that soil as many days of the year as possible. Any kind of plants, even if it's weeds. Second goal, and this one is vexing for me too. Like, how are you gonna fertilize? So maybe your compost is really good and magical and you don't need to fertilize. That's it. Your whole program is in that compost. All right, that sounds like it might work. Here's some other ideas about what you might be able to do. Here's your program. Number 3, use the broad fork and hope stuff trickles, things are going to trickle down into those little holes. You could top dress only. This is a weird, old-fashioned top. Oh my God, I'm terrible at this. Old-fashioned drop spreader. Or you could just go all liquids. Or maybe your compost is super awesome. Who's got super awesome compost available at a reasonable, any price under $100 a yard? Okay, couple. I made my own for 20 years, and it was super awesome. It cost me about $80 a yard to make it. That doesn't include overhead. I needed about 60, 70 grand to be able to have all the toys to make it. All right, I can't read anything unless I stand over here. Third goal, seed bed preparation. How are we going to be able to plant those fine seeds? And some of you, again, you may have this beautiful compost and you may be able to just drive the seeder right through it. Maybe you're using the paper pot. What's going on? What are you doing? How are you planting seeds in a no-till situation? You just drive right through there? Come on. Huh? Crawl. What you mean? Seeds? Carrots? You're planting seeds by hand? Okay, I'm not working at your house. What else? You can go ahead and drive your earthway or your jang right through it. Okay? And what did you have to do to prepare it? Okay. Anything else? Maybe you had to rake it to make it smooth enough. So it's a thing. It's likely you're going to have to touch the soil with something. First, you had to make sure nothing was there. We're going to get there in a second, right? Because it used to be covered with junk, rotten shit, and I don't know what all. So some operations had to happen, including usually some kind of disturbance called a rake. Maybe it was a tilther. Maybe it was a rototiller. I don't know. All right, so let's talk about compost. So that was a picture of I'm just going to go all compost and that's going to solve all my problems. And maybe it will, because clearly it has for some people. So here's a little compost volume thing I found on the web. Never saw it before a few weeks ago. It's pretty cool. Here's one of your traditional 3-foot wide by 100-foot long beds. And I'm going to add 2 inches of compost. That's at 1.85 cubic yards per 100-foot bed. That's a lot of compost, and I'm only getting 2 inches. So you better be really good at spreading that so that when you drive the seeder through, you didn't all of a sudden have naked earth under there. I don't know, it sounds hard. Ugh. So a dump truck carries 25 yards. So a regular big-ass dump truck, like you see on the highway, that'll do 25 beds. That's it. A tractor trailer might do, 13 beds. Tractor trailer load would do 30 beds. So this is a significant undertaking, and we're only doing 2 inches. So it isn't going to be that first picture that I keep showing you that freaks me out. That's like 8 inches. So I don't know. The math is tricky. And I'm here to also be an ambassador from Maryland. In Maryland has the most restrictions on farmers of any state in the union for spreading phosphorus-containing materials, because we're at ground zero of the Chesapeake Bay issue. So every farmer in Maryland has to do a nutrient management plan every year. And if your soil test phosphorus is over 250, the red light starts flashing. And if it's over 350 parts per million, you are not allowed to use anything with phosphorus in it ever again till it goes back down to 250. So there's a whole bunch of something going on here with this. I'm worried about the future catching up with some of this. I'm just going to use 8 inches of compost. Parts per million. So the soil tests I see of no-tillers that have used tons and tons and tons of compost, their phosphoruses are in the emergency declaration from the state of Maryland level. They're over 300 parts per million and up. And what they learned at the University of Maryland studying the shit out of this, because what caused the whole problem on the Chesapeake Bay was shit, right? The chicken industry. Let's put all our chickens on top of a sand pit, see what comes out the bottom. So what they found out is they used to say phosphorus only moves into the waterway through erosion, attached to the soil itself. So if you don't have erosion, you're not going to be having any phosphorus movement. Then they did a little more study in Maryland, and they basically put a little pan underneath a field, and they're like, oh, if your phosphorus parts per million are over 300, it leaks out the bottom in the water. You didn't have any erosion. You just have rain coming through the soil profile. And then that water full of phosphorus goes down, 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 hits the down, the underneath water, and it all ends up in the bay. Okay, so that's why we got big-ass rules in Maryland about phosphorus. Usually rules that start somewhere in a crisis tend to spread to other places. I don't know if it's ever going to get to Kentucky. I'm just saying you might be becoming a point source pollution for phosphorus. Just something to consider. What kind of compost can you get? Back to this gentleman and this lady. Most compost that's available for sale that's cheap is not very good. Why is it not very good? Because the people making it are waste handlers. And their only goal is to keep moving waste through the system. They don't really care about necessarily, they can't afford to care about the quality of the product to grow your carrots. They just need to keep this train moving of wood chips and food scraps. And it's super cool on one hand, right? Keeping it out of the landfill. On the other hand, it's not really great compost for growing because it's too much wood product. So in composting, they're mixing the two farthest apart ingredients on the carbon to nitrogen ratio scale. The most volatile thing there is food waste, right? How fast does food waste get weird? 12 hours, 24 hours before it's funky? And they're mixing that with wood chips, who are living on a geologic time scale compared to, I'll be rotten tomorrow, I'll be rotten in 10 years. So it's a tricky, but those are the waste streams that are available. Too many stories. Okay, so I just worry about everything. I worry that you're just going to have shit compost and it's not going to turn out good. I don't know. So I just worry. Then how are you going to deal with this situation? I have shit compost. I have a lot of it, so that's good. And Are you going to have a water hydraulic problem? So this is what I said to my customer when I was trying to explain to them, like, why is everything not working and what do you need to do? I was like, this is where we're going. We want to grow in chocolate cake. And you just want to put all your ingredients in a layer and not mix it up. But this does not make cake until you mix it. Mixing is good for certain purposes. And this is where we're going. All right? Uh-oh, I feel like we're getting sleepy. What are we going to do? How much time do we have? 15. You are kind of not enraged enough. What's happening? You're supposed to be more angry with me. Say that again. I didn't hear you. In the middle of what? Yeah. So are you saying y'all are we're singing the same song together? Yay! Well, I wish we probably should just sing. Maybe we'll do a song at the end. We'll have to think of what's one we know besides Christmas songs. What? All right, well, maybe. What's another one? What's the one that's like, not God Bless America, the waves of grain, what is it? That's a nice one. All right, let's hold that thought. We're going to just do a little bit more nerding out. All right, so here's Ellen's ranking of the least nice to the most gentle hand tool in gradation. So rototiller is the demon. Sometimes you're going to use it. And the hand rake is the gentlest. And over here, if you're going to put it on a tractor, here's my ranking of most disturbing to the least disturbing tillage implement. Anybody, y'all want to argue about that, or you like it? They're all good. All right, NRCS is signing on. Anybody else want to mess around with this? You're good. That's a good point. We could probably argue about whether a harrow is really more disturbing. So maybe they're all like in the same row. I just needed to do a different thing with PowerPoint to make it show up better. But this is, and then we could talk about what kind of spading machine, because of course I want to argue about that. And I want you to buy the one that costs more than God himself or herself. I want the one that costs $45,000 and comes from Holland. That's the spading machine I like. The Emons, the blue one. Better than the green ones and the red ones, yes? So she's asking about starting at the very beginning. So you'd go back to the slide or way back at the beginning of the deck. I assume you're somewhere around here and you're on bad ground. Not too bad. All right, let's talk about tarping. But likely depends on everything depends. So the answer to all questions start with it depends, which is super annoying and true. Depends on what's on this, what's there now. How much fixing do you need to do? Do you intend to bring in bajillions of compost? Do you need lime? Is your compost pH 9? So I can't give you the prescription, but I imagine that you might start with some tillage, like I said, and see how she goes, and then take away the tillage as the healing commences. So part of how I sort of mentally and ethically dealt with these decisions as a farmer, and I was brought up Catholic, so that probably will help you understand what I'm going to say. I was like, I'm going to do some sinning over here, and then I'm going to make up for it over here. Okay? So I'm going to do some tilling, and then I'm going to do the best rotation ever. 1 year on, 1 year off. And during that rotation, that's 18 months of cover crop. So I'm only going to grow vegetables for 6 months. And the other year and a half, I'm going to just be loving on that soil, giving it residue, roots, fertilizer, compost, little bit of compost, not a lot. And so that's how I could live, knowing that I was going to use tillage for certain reasons and then I was going to make up for it. What do you got? Right, so he's saying one of the things we don't know about your situation is how hard is the ground. So use a penetrometer, use a fork, use a digging bar, use a flag, whatever it is, poke around out there and let's see how tough that soil is. And that will help you know sort of the scale of your project in terms of hardness. I'm going to have him, yeah, and then you. Would I make a decision before the soil test? I think, you're going to do them both. You definitely need a soil test and you definitely need to poke around. Then let's regroup and make a plan. Yep, thank you. Yes?
What would be a small scale version of a ripper? I have one thought that kind of looks like that example you showed.
Yeah, is there a small scale version of a ripper? There isn't one that goes on a walk behind because why? The weight, it doesn't go down enough, I think is the problem. So the broad fork is all you got. Another thing to think about is, are you going to design your farm so that you can never use a tractor-mounted implement? Well, guess what? I hope you like it that way, because you're stuck. Just saying. Something to think about. I don't know what your situation is. Maybe, you've got a tiny, tiny little piece of land, that's it. How are we going to do cover crops? If we can't rake, how are we going to cover those seeds? I mean, are we just going to put them in right before the rain? I don't know. I worry about not enough cover crops in y'all's system. But I don't, stuff is working. I'm just an old worrywart. Weed control. How are we going to do weed control without disturbing any soil? Right? Because in the organic vegetable production, we're going to hoe, we're going to wheel hoe, we're going to hand hoe, we're going to Ferguson, we're going to tine weed, we're going to do some stuff, we're going to move some dirt around. What are we going to do without any of those tools? Well, we could use mulches, we can use flame weeders, we can use hand weeding. Again, I don't want to work at your farm. And then there's this, then we're back to this. Well, I'm just going to cover everything up and I'm just going to keep covering it up over and over forever. Okay. So what I learned when I went to Singing Frogs Farm, which is California, and like I said, they're kind of like the ones that people bow to. They're the gods and goddesses of no-till. They said, what we've noticed is if our organic matter percent gets over 9, shit gets weird, and we start having problems. What does that mean in terms of what do they do next? I don't know. I'm just saying we have to remember that we can't have that same old-fashioned idea that if a little is good, a lot is better. Doesn't work with boron. Doesn't work with Roundup. Doesn't work with a lot of things, right? If a little is good, maybe that's all you need. So maybe a lot of compost forever, you may end up in a whole different situation. When you take actual soil out of it, you're growing in a greenhouse. It's called a planting medium. You are no longer earth-based. You're doing something else. And then you need a different soil test because everything is a whole other ball game. And this is mostly happening in y'all's tunnels because that's where you're pouring on the compost and shit's getting weird, isn't it? And then maybe you're going to do what Ben Hartman does, which is I'm just going to take all that dirt out and start over again. Woo! We got some situations. Who has a hand? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, black plastic in the tomato row. Mm-hmm. Yeah, hay in the aisles. Yep. Yeah. In that situation, I'm not going to repeat it. I think everybody heard him. If we were using bioplastic, we just only have to pull the drip tape out, and then I would probably disc it lightly and then plant the cover crop. Maybe I have to spade it to bust up that hay mulch a little bit. But I don't have enough time or slides to show you, but I want to, there's a couple people that need me to say this to them because it's super interesting and cool. So, the vacation program, the 18 months, 3 different cover crops in a row, right? I'm really going to be quick. Fall of your vegetable crop. Till in whatever you need to. Let's start with a nice clean seed bed. Let's go crimson clover and barley. Next spring, let it grow up. Let it make seed. Do some risky shit. I did not say vetch. I said clover. Now, get a no-till seeder and just drill in Sudan grass and cowpeas twice. Once this way, or twice just get a lot of damn seed out there. Watch that summer cover come right up through the living regrowth barley that's like this. Now, in the fall, don't even mow it. Come back in with the no-till seeder, put back in barley and crimson clover. So now I just did 18 months of a lot of residue and roots, no tillage. Am I making up for my sin? You're goddamn right I am. I mean, dudes, when you go back into vegetables with that, what I just told you, they are going to grow really good. They love vacation, just like you. All right, got a little excited. Residue. All right, let's just look at this, because this is big, right? Who's using tarps? Bunch of people, because this is kind of like what you got. This is one of your big tools in low till is tarping. Otherwise, you just got hand removal, or otherwise, you could be hand planting in that rye, that rolled down rye. Again, I don't want to work at your house. What's up with the tarping? Upsides. No herbicide is being used. That's cool. It's easy to get. Cool. No soil disturbance. Check. That's your religion. And it keeps the ground wetter or drier. I'm never clear. I guess it's whatever it was when you tarped it. It just stays the same. That's the upside. What's the downside? Oh man, is there some downsides? Those upsides are big, I grant you. It's a pain in the ass. It blows away, costs money, looks terrible. It's plastic. What? Attracts pests. What kind? Mice and voles love this situation of that beautiful residue with that plastic on top. It's like mouse heaven. We got time involved. We may still end up, even when you pull it off, with you still got shit in the way. You can't just plant carrots right through all that stuff. And we have no living roots in the ground. I thought this whole thing was about biology. Where's my roots, baby? Where's my living roots? Collecting up sun and making sugar and feeding biology below. So I'm not in love with tarps at all. I don't want to work on your farm if that's what you're going to make me do all the time. Nobody likes it. And they're really heavy, and yeah. So this is a picture of how I farmed. So this is what I call high residue tillage organic vegetable growing. So you see the residue here. This was this is fall, September, August planted brassicas. There's a lot of residue there, but I can water wheel that shit in, and look how good she's growing. And then what am I going to do when they're teenage size? September, I'm going to weed with a machine or with humans, whatever, and I'm going to overseed crimson clover, and I'm going to grow this beautiful cover crop right underneath the cash crop, and it's going to grow all winter long, and it's just going to be all beautiful clover the next spring. Ooh, that's pretty good. You know, I feel pretty good. I don't remember what's next, but that's my whole program. So we're pretty much supposed to be done. Do we need to deal with anything in the room? I could do this for too long. I'd love to stay, but they say we have to stop in 2 minutes. Anybody have a burning question? Did we get to your compost question? Yeah, the answer is it depends on everything. Yep. So these are the things that your old mama is worrying about when you start talking about no-till. I worry about cover crops, and I worry about testing and balancing the soil. So I hope that this helps you assuages some kind of weird like guilt or bad feelings that you have about doing some kinds of tillage on your farm. I hope it gives you some ideas about how you can pay for your sins. And I want us to all remember we're all on the same team. We're all in biological agriculture, growing food, and we cannot demonize each other over something as simple as I use a hoe or I don't use a hoe, okay? We cannot splinter up into groups that are bad-mouthing each other. We got to talk nice, we got to play nice, and we got to all keep doing good work. All right? Thank you. I'd love to argue with anybody for another hour. Just come on up.